Okay, so a couple of reports just came in and they're a bit weird. They're about the future of the iPad. More specifically, Apple is apparently working on a 14.1-inch iPad Pro, which according to Russ Young, which you all know he has an amazing track record, it would come with a mini LED display, ProMotion, and be released in early 2023. Now, Russ Young is not the only one to report on this. There's also another leaker, Majin. He doesn't actually have any track record, to be honest, but what's really interesting here is that he reported about this a day before Russ Young, that Apple's working on a 14.1-inch M2 iPad Pro with 512 gigabytes of storage, 16 gigabytes of RAM on the baseline model. So this would essentially match the base 14-inch MacBook Pro. He also reported that there is a new M2 lineup coming this year, the 11-inch, which is getting no changes aside from the M2 chip, and then the new 12.9-inch, which aside from the M2 chip is also getting thinner bezels, and then the 14.1-inch early next year. Okay, now if you have an iPad that supports the Apple Pencil, which are all the iPads at this point, then you have to give Paperlike a try. I've used it myself and it's honestly so good, especially if you're someone who takes a lot of notes or uses an iPad for drawing and sketching. Paperlike adds more grip to the iPad screen, making the Apple Pencil experience feel more like writing on real paper. And every Paperlike box comes with 2 of them in case you mess up. Check out Paperlike by using the link below. And now, back to the video. Oh, and breaking news. Russ Young just reported that this new 14.1-inch iPad Pro won't have mini LED and ProMotion, so it might not be a Pro model after all. Personally, I don't think this makes much sense, so for the rest of the video, I'll just be referring to it as an iPad Pro. Regardless, it is still very likely to happen, as it's not just Russ Young and Majin reporting on this, but Mark Gurman as well. In fact, he said that Apple was exploring iPads with larger displays back in 2021. Mark also reported last week that the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch will be getting the M2 chip, wireless charging, and camera system upgrades this year, which is new. We haven't really heard about this before. Now, this could be a new camera module entirely, or it could simply be that earlier rumored repositioned Face ID module. And the biggest change here is, of course, that M2 chip, which begs the question, is this the future of the iPad? I think it's only a matter of time until we also get the M1 chip on the mini and the base iPad. It's not gonna happen with the M2, probably with, I don't know, the M4, M5, or something like that. And I do believe that until we do get an M chip on the entry-level iPads too, all the big features will be unfortunately restricted to the M1, M2 iPads. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just an iPad, so is the M1 and M2 chip wasted? Well, to be honest, a year ago, I would have said yes, there's nothing on the iPad, or at least there wasn't anything on the iPad back then, that was taking full advantage of that chip. But I feel like now in iPadOS 16, which does have Stage Manager and proper external display support, we are starting to see more proper Pro features on the iPads, which does make me quite happy and quite curious to see where, the future is. Okay, now the next new feature for this year will be wireless charging. The main reason is MagSafe. There's a lot of MagSafe accessories, some of them which are really good. You have stands, and I do think that this could open the door for a future fully wireless iPad and iPhone as soon as we get some sort of fast data transfer through MagSafe. I don't think that this generation of MagSafe on the iPad would support any data transfer, especially since we do have Thunderbolt at the moment, so pro users especially, will be taking advantage of that. But what I think will be different from something like an iPhone in terms of MagSafe will be the charging speed. Right now, MagSafe supports up to 15 watts of wireless charging, but you all probably know that it's not as efficient as wire charging is, so you do lose some watts there. One of the biggest differences that we'll be getting with wireless charging on the iPad through MagSafe is just faster charging. We're also getting a new design. So we've heard about that quite some time ago. We even made a concept with glass on the back to support MagSafe charging. The more recent rumors are saying that we might not get a full glass back, but instead we might just get a larger Apple logo that's made out of glass, so that that is the area where you would use MagSafe on. I guess it will be a bit weird how, I don't know, the 11-inch model will keep the same size bezels, which I do believe are a bit thick compared to other tablets from Samsung. So this is pretty much what's coming with the new iPad Pros, the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch models. Okay, and then we have the new 14-inch model, which is actually the biggest change to come to an iPad Pro in terms of size changes since the original iPad Pro came out. And I think that there is definitely a potential in Apple releasing an even larger tablet. Like, I've seen quite a number of people in public with 12.9-inch iPad Pros, and a lot of them are using it with a keyboard or with the pencil, so they're using it as a creative device or as an actual laptop replacement. I've even seen people in the library with an iPad Pro with a smart keyboard. Like, I'm a big fan of the 11-inch iPad Pro, and I think it's great. Like, size-wise, it's perfect. I do find the 12.9-inch to be quite big, but at the end of the day, if you're using it as your only device, then even 12.9 inches might not be enough, especially with the new Stage Manager, which works pretty well, and I do like it. I do think it needs some improvements in terms of just the layout and how many windows you can actually open. Now, a 14-inch iPad Pro does raise a few questions, and I think the biggest one is it going to come with any design changes? Is it going to come in a different aspect ratio? iPads have pretty much always come in a 4:3 aspect ratio. So is this gonna come in, I don't know, 16:10 to be more similar to a MacBook? And then what about the accessories? Are we gonna get a new Apple Pencil? Well, probably not. I think the Apple Pencil already has a pretty decent size, and I don't think Apple's gonna make that even bigger. But I do think that we might see a new Magic Keyboard, especially one that is more functional with, you know, function keys. The 11-inch iPad Pro's Magic Keyboard is pretty tiny, like even the keys are very, very small. The 12.9-inch has a more generic keyboard with actual key sizes that match the ones on the MacBook Pros, but because of that weird floating design, they didn't put any function keys on it. However, with this new 14-inch model, since it will also be taller, we would actually have enough room for function keys. And then what about ports? Are we gonna get any more ports? At the moment, we have one Thunderbolt port on the iPad Pros, and I guess we could see one on each side. That'll be great. Like, we don't even have this on the MacBook Air, but you know, the 14-inch MacBook Pro has it, and I think that for an iPad Pro of this price, which I'll get to in a bit, that's a big requirement. But I think the real question is, should you get that, the 14.1-inch iPad Pro, or should you get, you know, a MacBook? And I think the answer to that is a bit more complicated because it depends on a lot of things. And I do have some concerns when it comes to this. My first concern is the weight. So at the moment, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro is 682 grams, but when you connect it to a keyboard, the Magic Keyboard, that's 710. So in total, it would actually be heavier than the MacBook Air, which is 129. It would be 1.4 kilograms, so the same as a 13-inch MacBook Pro. But keep in mind that this is just a 12.9-inch iPad Pro at the moment. The 14-inch model would be far heavier, and then the keyboard for that would be far heavier too. And then my other concern is the price. 12.9-inch iPad Pro costs $1099, and then if you had a keyboard, which is $349, you'll end up at $1449, and that is for the base 128 gigabytes of storage. If you bump it to 256, that's going to cost you $1,548. Now, just to give you guys an idea, the M2 MacBook Air with 256 gigabytes of storage costs $1199, and the M2 MacBook Pro is $1299. The 14-inch iPad Pro will probably start from $1399, and then if you add a keyboard for, let's say, $449, that's gonna cost you $1848. And if it comes with the rumored specs, so the 512 gigabytes of storage and 16 gigabytes of RAM, you'll end up just $150 less than a 14-inch MacBook Pro. And you need to keep in mind that the MacBook Pro also comes with more ports and the more powerful M1 Pro chip with a far better GPU, and you get, you know, dual monitor support, so you get a lot of advantages that the iPad just doesn't have. But I think overall, the iPad Pro is a more premium product. Like, if you think about it, it has a touchscreen. It supports the Apple Pencil, which the MacBook does not. It is thinner and lighter, at least without the keyboard. It also supports cellular, so you can use it pretty much anywhere, even without Wi-Fi. It also has a mini LED 120Hz display, which I know the 14-inch MacBook Pro also has, but the MacBook Air and the 13-inch MacBook Pros do not. And then it also has a camera on the back with LiDAR, and then a far more advanced front-facing camera. And let me know, which iPad would you actually get in 2022 or even 2023? Like, would you consider getting a 14-inch iPad Pro, or would you just stick with something a bit smaller and a bit more usable? And I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on what's your on the iPad use case, essentially. Like, how do you actually use an iPad? But yeah, I'm Daniel, this has been ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.